So today we will be discussing Claudette Colvin, the original Rosa Parks.
A hero. Most people, when they hear the name Rosa Parks, they envision a woman who was a civil rights activist and started the Montgomery bus boycott. But what if I told you the woman everyone is thinking of isn't Rosa Parks?
Now before we explain, let me first introduce Claudette Colvin. Claudette Colvin was born September 5, 1939 in Birmingham, Alabama to Mary Jane Gadsden and C.P. Austin, but was adopted and raised by her great-aunt and great-uncle Mary Ann and Q.P. Colvin. Claudette and her guardians then relocated to Montgomery when she was 8, and it was there that she started her high school career at the Booker T. Washington High School. Now, this is Claudette Colvin's story that only made local news. On March 2, 1955, Claudette and some friends went on a downtown bus after an early release from school and took their seats in a middle row. It was then that they were all told by the driver to move their seats further back due to a white woman being stood in the aisle, and they all did, except for Claudette. She explained, "I would have done it for an elderly person, but this was a young white woman," and when asked why she refused her seat, she answered, "It felt as though Harriet Tubman's hands were pushing me down on one shoulder, and Sojourner Truth's hands were pushing me down on the other shoulder. I felt inspired by these women because my teacher taught us about them in so much detail." As it was at the time, her teachers made sure their students were, quote-unquote, grounded in Black history. Shortly after this, she was arrested and detained at an adult prison instead of a juvenile detention center.
The story you know. The story everyone knows, and the one they all tell us in history class, is about Rosa Parks sitting on a segregated Montgomery bus after work and getting arrested after refusing to give up her seat. The reason for the driver wanting to give up her seat was because of the bus being full. White passengers were standing and the driver wanted them to sit. What the driver did was move the black section farther back into the bus to make more room for the white section. Other African Americans gave up their seat and moved further down, but Rosa Parks didn't. She states that she refused not out of exhaustion, but out of being tired of giving in. She wanted to stand up for herself just once.
Now, after Claudette's incident, she had called the NAACP to file a lawsuit against the city bus company, and it is speculated that the NAACP, whom Rosa Parks was a secretary for at the time, was actually inspired by Claudette Colvin's story to have someone purposely get arrested by not giving up their seat. And this someone, incidentally, happened to be the more elder, more educated, and more light-skinned Rosa Parks. 9 months later, Rosa Parks' almost identical story made worldwide news and is said to have inspired the Montgomery bus boycott, with no mention of Colvin. Now, the photo we have here is an actual leaflet promoting the Montgomery bus boycott shortly after Rosa Parks' arrest, and it reads, "Don't ride the bus to work, to town, to school, or any place Monday, December 5th. Another Negro woman has been arrested and put in jail because she refused to give up her bus seat. Don't ride the buses to work, to town, to school, or anywhere on Monday. If you work, take a cab or share a ride or walk. Come to a mass meeting Monday at 7 p.m. at the Holt Street Baptist Church for further instructions." Now you may notice how the leaflet says "another Negro woman" and doesn't just mention Rosa Parks.
Why? Many factors play out onto why they had Rosa Parks play Claudette's role. One of them being was that she got pregnant after the bus incident and the public wanted someone presentable or appropriate to be the one to stand for African Americans. Another reason was due to how young she was. Who would have taken it seriously if it was an adolescent who decided to stand up? I guess you can say sit down for herself. It would have all been overlooked and blamed on how young people have no respect and don't know their place. Lastly, the color of her skin was too dark. They wanted a skin tone that blacks and whites could be happy with and support.
Now, this story of Rosa Parks and Claudette Colvin may not seem like a big deal, but it still has effects to this very day. As we mentioned before, the story told in classrooms and printed in the history books and known worldwide is the Rosa Parks case, and yet very few know of Claudette Colvin's story. But that's not really the public's fault either. We had called two different public museums, the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan, which is home to the actual bus where Rosa Parks refused her seat, and the Alabama Department of Archives and History, located in the city where both incidents happened, Montgomery, Alabama. Shout out to Mary from the Henry Ford Museum and Henry from the Alabama Department of Archives and History. They were both very sweet and very helpful. But when we asked both employees if they had any exhibits or any information about Claudette Colvin, they answered that they knew of Claudette Colvin of their own accord, but they confessed that their museums had no information about her or her story. Now, this is kind of disappointing and a little upsetting because Claudette Colvin is just as important as Rosa Parks. We understand that Rosa Parks sparked the civil rights revolution in such a way that it became so widely known that it actually did make a difference, but we still need to pay tribute to Claudette Colvin because both incidents were not at fault of anybody except for the racism and segregation of the times.
Thank you. Thank you for listening in to our presentation, and we hope you found it informative and not boring. Thank you.